Sound cue, soft hospital beeps, then a sharp intake of breath. Sis. The voice was barely a whisper. Neelam froze. Her brother's fingers moved. A year of silence. A year of waiting. And now, he was waking up. But Neelam didn't know that this moment, the miracle she had prayed for, would also paint a target on her back. Because in the shadows, someone was already watching. Welcome back to the Velvet Story video, where every heartbeat hides a secret. Tonight, we dive into the storm of Beneath the Mask, chapters 27 to 30. Love awakens where fear lingers, betrayal lurks behind glass walls, and the truth of a stolen night finally rises to the surface. Grab your headphones, dim the lights, and let's step into the world where even protectors bleed. Chapter 27, When the Eyes Open. Zoo Private Hospital Rehabilitation Wing. The morning light crept gently through the pale curtains, casting soft patterns across the sterile walls of the hospital room. Machines hummed softly, rhythmic and familiar, like the heartbeat of hope itself. Neelam sat curled on the edge of a hospital couch, her knees drawn up, her phone resting face down on the side table. Her hand was wrapped gently around her brother's, limp, unmoving for over a year. She'd made it a ritual, sitting with Jillian for at least 1 hour every morning, reading old messages, whispering updates, even playing the piano pieces he once loved through her phone. But today, something felt different. The air was still, her skin prickled, and then, his fingers twitched. Once, twice, then more firmly. Neelam shot up, heart leaping into her throat. Jillian, his eyelids fluttered. Neelam ran to the bed, clutching his hand. Jillian, it's me, it's Neelam, can you hear me? His brow furrowed. A small breath. Then his eyes, those warm, clever eyes, opened, unfocused but alive. Sis, he whispered, dry and cracked. A sob broke in Neelam's throat. Tears fell as she laughed and cried all at once. You came back to me. He tried to speak again, but she hushed him, gently pressing the nurse's call button with shaking fingers. Save your strength. You're safe now. I'm here. Later that afternoon, hospital balcony. Yiran stood on the balcony with 2 coffee cups in hand when Neelam found him. She hadn't even changed clothes. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but the light in them was something different now, something radiant. He woke up, she said breathlessly, stepping into the sunlit corner where he stood. I know, he said, handing her the warm coffee. Your bodyguard called me the moment the doctors confirmed. I didn't want to interrupt. You could never be an interruption. Her words hung in the air, softer than she intended. Yiran smiled faintly. How is he? Still weak, but talking. They think he'll walk again, in time. Her voice trembled. He asked about mom and dad. Yiran's smile faded. Did you tell him? She nodded slowly. He didn't cry, just stared out the window for a long time and said, then I guess it's my turn to protect you now. Yiran looked at her, truly looked. Her strength, her softness, the layers she'd built and the rawness she really let him see. I wish I could have saved you from all of it, he murmured. You were never supposed to, she replied, turning to him fully. But you stayed anyway. A breeze brushed between them. Her hair danced against her cheek, and instinctively, he reached to tuck it behind her ear. His fingers lingered, so did her eyes. And then, finally, with no audience, no pretense, no chaos, Neelam stepped forward, her hand gently resting on his chest. I'm scared, she whispered. Of feeling this again, of trusting it. I know, he said softly, his hand covering hers. But I'm not here to break anything. She tilted her head. Then what are you here for, Keen Yiran? He took a breath. And then, slowly, as if afraid the moment might vanish, he leaned down. And kissed her. Not fiercely, not hungrily, but quietly, reverently, like she was something sacred. Something worth waiting for. Somewhere else the snake watchers. Across the city, in a shadowed office filled with cigar smoke and silence, a man watched the news feeds on a large screen. A photo of Neelam and Yiran leaving the hospital together had just been published online. Foolish boy, the old man said, voice gravel and disdain. He's playing the long game wrong. He turned to the man behind him, lean, scar-faced, eyes cold. Take care of it. Remind him this is war. And she's his weakest flank. The man nodded once and disappeared through the door like a phantom. That night Jillian's room. Meelam sat beside her brother again, brushing his hair back from his forehead. He smiled faintly, tired but stronger already. Sis, he said suddenly, was that Keen Yiran I saw earlier? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Jillian's smile widened just a little. He looked like a man in trouble. Meelam laughed, pressing her forehead against his. You've missed a lot, she whispered. Then tell me everything, he replied. And she did, everything except the kiss. That was hers to keep. For now. End of chapter 27. Chapter 28, Crimson Thread. Zoo Melan's apartment 2:37 a.m. The night was silent, unusually so. The kind of silence that makes your skin prickle before your mind catches up. Zoo Melam stirred in her sleep. Something was wrong. She sat up, not because of a sound, but because of the sudden stillness that felt unnatural, like the world holding its breath. The motion sensor light in the hallway flickered on. Her heart thudded. She grabbed the slim steel baton hidden beneath her pillow, a habit she'd picked up recently, and stepped out of her room barefoot, alert. Her fingers hovered over her phone when a shadow moved. From the balcony, her breath caught. But before she could scream, a figure lunged at her. And then a crashing sound burst through the door. The shadow hit the ground before it reached her. Keen Yiran stood in the doorway, breath heaving, eyes burning with fury. His coat was still on, and blood welled from a thin slice across his cheek. He'd been fast, impossibly fast. Meelam, he shouted, pushing past her, pinning the attacker to the ground. The man fought violently, trained, prepared, but Yiran was quicker. A gun clattered to the floor. Another blow, and the man went limp. Meelam pressed her back against the wall, chest heaving. Her knees shook. Yiran rushed to her, his hands hovering over her arms without touching. Are you hurt? She shook her head wordlessly. Did he? No, she whispered. You got here in time. And that's when her composure cracked. She gripped the front of his coat, her forehead falling against his chest. You saved me again. Yiran held her close, his hand running through her hair as his heart pounded. I'll always get to you in time. 6 hours earlier, Keen Corporation, CEO's office. Yiran had been reviewing new contracts when the alert came from one of his personal agents. A security camera in Melan's complex had been disabled. Suspicious movements. An unusual black van parked near the building. He didn't call the police. He ran. Because he knew. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a message. The next morning the headlines break. Rolled up newspaper attempted break-in at Zoo Heiress's apartment. Sources confirm Keen CEO on scene. Rolled up newspaper security failure or targeted attack? Anonymous tip hints at internal corporate sabotage. Rolled up newspaper the heiress and the CEO, real love or political move? Zoo Holdings PR office later that day. You can't hide this, her assistant muttered in a panic. There are already conspiracy theories swirling. They think it was staged. That I orchestrated my own assassination to gain sympathy? Meelam said coolly, adjusting the collar of her blazer. She stood at the podium, eyes scanning the crowd of flashing cameras. She took a breath and spoke. Last night, someone broke into my home with the intention to harm me. Fortunately, they failed. Her voice was calm, clear, firm. I don't believe in hiding behind silence. I believe in truth. And the truth is, I have been targeted. Because I dared to take back what belonged to my family. The room held its breath. I will not step down. I will not run. I will not disappear. She smiled, tight and razor sharp. If you think fear will silence me, you've clearly never met my mother. The media erupted in questions about Keen Yiran, about suspects, about corporate retaliation. But Meelam simply bowed, then turned and walked out. Not shaken, not weak, burning. That evening Keen Yiran's penthouse. Milam had refused to sleep at her apartment, and Yiran refused to let her go to a hotel. So now, she stood barefoot in his kitchen, sipping tea he made and staring out at the city from 20 floors up. You didn't have to let me stay here, she murmured. I didn't, he agreed. I wanted to. She looked over her shoulder. This is the part where you say I'm safer with you. No, he said softly. This is the part where I say I sleep better knowing you're somewhere I can reach in 2 seconds. Milam turned, heart heavy and strangely light all at once. You could walk away, Yiran. You have nothing to gain from this. I've already gained something, he said, voice steady. You. She stared. Do you mean that? She asked, voice cracking. He nodded once. I meant it the moment I saw you sit beside your unconscious brother every morning like the world still made sense. Her breath caught, and she whispered, you make me feel like I'm not just surviving. He stepped closer, brushing her knuckles with his fingers. You are not, he murmured. Their hands met between the tea and the silence. And they held on. Meanwhile, unknown location. The failed assassin was gone. The holding cell where he'd been kept was found empty. Clean. No prints. No blood. No record. And on the wall, scratched in faint lines. She has protectors. But every protector bleeds. End of chapter 28. Chapter 29, The Night We Never Chose. Keen Corporation Private Lounge, 10:12 p.m. Keen Yiran stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his executive suite, rain streaking down the glass like veins. His jaw was clenched, unreadable. His assistant, Mo Chen, stood silently beside him, holding an unmarked envelope. Yiran didn't open it yet. He already knew what it held. A proposal from the Shen family, Mo Chen said lowly. They want you to sell out Zhu Meilan's AI patent strategy. If you cooperate, they'll leave you alone. Maybe even let you keep your seat. Yiran's lips twisted into something between a laugh and a snarl. They're offering peace in exchange for betrayal. And threatening war if you don't. Yiran finally opened the envelope. A photo slid out, a blurry CCTV still from the night of Meilan's wedding. It was him, in a hallway, half conscious, holding a veil thread between his fingers. His face was pale, eyes dazed, shirt wrinkled like he'd just clawed his way through confusion. Yiran's blood ran cold. They know, he murmured. Or they think they do, Mo Chen corrected. But they were there, Yiran said quietly, more to himself. That wasn't just a corporate trap. Someone orchestrated it down to the minute. He clutched the photo tighter. And suddenly, he remembered. That scent, vanilla and jasmine, the weight of her against him. Her voice, soft and startled. Her tears. It had been Milam, their first time. A moment stolen from 2 lives under siege. And he hadn't even known. His knees nearly buckled from the truth of it. Zhu Meilan's temporary apartment same night. Milam sat before her laptop, rubbing her temples as legal documents flickered on the screen. She was tired. Not the kind of tired sleep could fix. Tired in her soul. She had her mother's will pending in court. Her father's company to rebuild. Her brother is in rehab. And no answers, only fractures. Then, the screen blinked. An anonymous message appeared in her inbox. You want the truth of that night? Meet me at the Orchid rooftop. Midnight. Come alone. Her heart skipped. She knew it could be a trap. But, what if it wasn't? What if it was time? She grabbed her coat. Orchid rooftop 12:1 a.m. The rooftop was quiet, windy, rain-washed. The glass railing glowed blue from the city lights below. And there, already waiting, was Keen Yiran. Her steps slowed. You. He turned, eyes storm dark. I didn't send the message, he said. But I came because I need to tell you something. She tensed. What is it? He walked closer, hands in his coat pockets. I remember that night, he said. Not all of it, but enough. Milam froze. I didn't know before, he continued. But it was you. I know it now. The breath left her lungs. It wasn't supposed to be you, she whispered, voice shaking. You were never meant to be there. I was framed, drugged, lied to. I was drugged too, he said quietly. They planned for me to take the fall. But I got to you first. And neither of us knew. He looked at her, not with pity, but something softer. I've spent so long hating myself for forgetting your face that night. She stepped back, shaking her head. Why are you telling me this now? Because the truth is a storm, he said. But lies are poison, and you deserve better than poison. She stared at him, mouth trembling. Do you hate me? For it? His voice broke. Meelam, how could I hate the only part of that night that felt safe? Something shattered inside her. The ache she'd locked away. The guilt she'd buried. And then, she stepped forward and hugged him. Tightly, like she couldn't stop herself. Like she needed to hold on to something real. Not the kind of tired sleep could fix. Tired in her soul. She had her mother's will pending in court. Her father's company to rebuild. Her brother is in rehab. And no answers, only fractures. Then, the screen blinked. An anonymous message appeared in her inbox. You want the truth of that night? Meet me at the orchid rooftop. Midnight. Come alone. Her heart skipped. She knew it could be a trap. But, what if it wasn't? What if it was time? She grabbed her coat. Orchid rooftop 1 a.m. The rooftop was quiet, windy, rain-washed. The glass railing glowed blue from the city lights below. And there, already waiting, was Keen Yiran. Her steps slowed. You. He turned, eyes storm dark. I didn't send the message, he said. But I came because I need to tell you something. She tensed. What is it? He walked closer, hands in his coat pockets. I remember that night, he said. Not all of it, but enough. Meelam froze. I didn't know before, he continued. But it was you. I know it now. The breath left her lungs. It wasn't supposed to be you, she whispered, voice shaking. You were never meant to be there. I was framed, drugged, lied to. I was drugged too, he said quietly. They planned for me to take the fall. But I got to you first. And neither of us knew. He looked at her, not with pity, but something softer. I've spent so long hating myself for forgetting your face that night. She stepped back, shaking her head. Why are you telling me this now? Because the truth is a storm, he said. But lies are poison, and you deserve better than poison. She stared at him, mouth trembling. Do you hate me? For it? His voice broke. Meelam, how could I hate the only part of that night that felt safe? Something shattered inside her. The ache she'd locked away. The guilt she'd buried. And then, she stepped forward and hugged him. Tightly, like she couldn't stop herself. Like she needed to hold on to something real. His arms wrapped around her instantly, like they'd been waiting. And for the first time, there was no fear between them. No accident, no confusion, no silence. Just a storm two people survived, together. Unknown chamber elsewhere. The figure in the shadows watched the rooftop feed on a secure laptop. They found the truth too soon, the voice murmured. The man beside him, scared, smiling cold, said, Shall I prepare for the next phase? The figure nodded once. Break them. If not through betrayal. A pause. Then through blood. End of chapter 29. Chapter 30, Shelter in the Rain. Headlines, 7:45 a.m. the next morning. Breaking, Keen Yiran linked to heiress Zhu Meilan's wedding night scandal. Anonymous sources claim Keen Yiran was not only present at the scene of the infamous Zhu wedding night but may have been the man found in the hotel bed with the bride-to-be. Was it seduction, betrayal, or a carefully orchestrated power play between empire? The media was on fire. Every whisper was now a war drum. Zhu Meilan's apartment 8:02 a.m. Meelam dropped her phone with trembling hands. Her breath hitched. The one thing she'd tried to keep from the world was now out. Her family, her dignity, the night she'd tried to forget. Her phone buzzed again. Keen Yiran. She hesitated, just long enough for shame to rise like bile, then answered. Don't say anything, she whispered. Not on the phone. I'm already outside, his voice replied. She rushed to the window. And there he stood, in the pouring rain. Suit soaked, gaze steady. Waiting. Like the whole world could burn and he wouldn't move unless she asked. Parking lot 5 minutes later. She stepped outside, umbrella forgotten. He met her halfway, rain running down both their faces. Who leaked it? She asked, voice tight. Shenha. I had a friend trace the media routes. They bribed a former hotel employee and photoshopped timestamps. She swallowed, arms crossed. And now the world thinks. I seduced you to destroy you. His voice was bitter, quiet. Her eyes shimmered. I don't care what they think about me, she whispered. But you. Yiran stepped closer. Let them talk. She blinked. He raised his hand, slow, always slow with her, and brushed a strand of soaked hair from her cheek. I'll be your villain, he said, voice low. If it keeps them from hurting you again. Her lips parted, trembling. You shouldn't have to. I want to. She looked away, fighting the emotion that stormed behind her. Her throat tightened. You'll lose your shareholders. I have too many, he said. A purge wouldn't hurt. Her head jerked up, startled, laughing through tears. That's not funny. It's a little funny. For a moment, in that grey rain, something real flickered between them. Warmth. A shared breath. A promise neither had words for yet. Zoo Holdings Crisis Meeting Room, 2:15 p.m. Meelam stood before her board, a room filled with men who once called her child and now called her a liability. One cleared his throat. EMS, Zoo, public perception is critical to recovery. Perhaps a step back. No. Her voice cut like a blade. Another leaned forward. Even a temporary distancing. I won't pretend to be a shadow, she said, steady. Not for your comfort. Not for my shame. I've lived in silence enough. Whispers rose, until she threw the latest article on the table. Here's your headline. Now decide, are you cowards or are you warriors? The room fell silent. Her spine was straight. Her eyes gleamed. And for the first time, a few looked proud. That night Keen Yiran's penthouse. She showed up without calling. Hair still damp from the shower, sweater 2 sizes too big, fingers nervously curled around a paper bag of takeout. He opened the door in a black t-shirt and pajama pants, surprised, but not unhappy. I didn't want to be alone, she said. He stepped aside. You never have to be. She walked in slowly, placing the food on the kitchen island. He watched her, not the way men watched women, but the way a storm watches the sea it belongs to. Quiet, drawn, inevitable. Late dinner, dimly lit kitchen. She stirred the noodles with a fork, sighing. I used to think love was something you earned. Like a reward for being obedient. Good. Perfect. Yiran leaned on the counter. And now, I think love is just someone seeing you at your worst and still staying. He said nothing for a moment. Then, I stayed. She looked up. His gaze was steady. I saw your worst, he said. And I stayed. Not out of pity, not out of duty, but because when you broke, you still stood up. Her throat tightened. I was so scared, she whispered, that I'd become nothing after that night. Just a ruined woman. Yiran stepped closer, gently taking her hand. You are not ruined. Their eyes locked. You are still becoming. And she realized, she didn't have to fall in love like a fire. She could heal into it. End of chapter 30. Sound only on the Velvet Story video. Don't forget to subscribe and keep listening, because the night is far from over.